On the 7th episode of Out of Play Area, we'll follow through with Mr. Benja's nomination from way back in episode 2 and sit to drink some scotch and Japanese whiskey with seasoned game dev Jeff Junio, a lead game designer at Jam City in Carlsbad, California. He's been in the game since the 16-bit Sega Genesis days. I call him Jefe, and we'll discuss how the heck he's sustained for over 30 years in this wild industry where devs usually don't average more than 5. He shares his perspective on what it takes to be a lead and how he handles hiring. We'll also break down some key differences in developing free-to-play mobile games, comparing that with traditional console game development. We'll even touch on life at Rockstar San Diego, where he worked on Midnight Club L.A. and more. Coming to us from the West Coast, in the paradise that is San Diego, California, please welcome the Philippine powerhouse, the flip-sider himself, Jeff Junio. Let's start the show.
Bienvenue. Welcome to the Out of Play Area podcast, a show by video game devs for game devs, where the guests open up one-on-one about their journey, their experiences, their views, and their ideas. No ads, no bullshit. Join us as we venture far out of the play area with your host, seasoned game designer John Diaz.
Glen 14, baby. It's all good. What are you rocking again?
I brought my Shibui. I think this is kind of the basic entry-level Shibui right here.
Right.
Little grain select whiskey. And we were talking about how these tend to be more balanced, more neutral. That's what you were schooling me on.
Right. And then with me doing the scotch, obviously that's more kind of traditional scotch. So it's more peaty. It's got a little bit more earthiness to it, a little bit more spice, as opposed to some of your bourbons, which is a little bit more sweeter. Another one that you might want to check out, just like some ryes. Ryes are like naturally kind of spicy, so they have a little bit of spicy notes to them. Those are actually really good if you like old fashions, or even like whiskey sours. It adds a little bit of spice to it. So,
yeah, that sounds like right up my palate. This one, I looked at it, man. I'm always kind of reading labels, so whenever I see things like coconut or vanilla, or like in the middle, right, I'm like, oh yeah, give me that. White pepper and jasmine.
Well, you know what? Here's another one, because you were telling me you're doing Japanese whiskey. I just picked up this bad boy.
Mayo?
I'm not sure. My bad to all my Japanese brethren out there and shit, but I just picked this bad boy up over at Costco. Man, this one, you want to talk about, like, it's got a lot of characteristics. It's got a lot of flavors in it. It's totally different than what I've drank before. On the nose, you get caramel, you get a lot of sweets, you get some fruits. And then on the tongue, it's hard to describe. It's really, really interesting.
There's a lot. The little bit I've been reading, man, a little Japanese approach to it is they definitely kind of go in and try to hit your taste buds from all angles.
Yep, for sure. But hey, we didn't get it last time. Salud.
Santé. Cheers, brother.
Yes.
It's going to be a good one.
Indeed.
This just means we get more drink than what we originally anticipated.
No complaints.
I want to take a moment and send some love out to California for the way that you guys handle alcohol and the Costco selection, because up here in Washington, they tax the hell out of the alcohol and the spirits, bro. I'm paying at least another good 20% on top of the fact.
Is that just Washington in general? Is there like a sales tax for liquor that's just artificially high?
Yeah, they throw an extra alcohol sales tax on it.
Okay.
Just specifically for alcohol. It's like the liter tax, right? If you're buying those big Costco bottles, they throw something on there. And they put the money to good use, you can say, on top of how much they make off taxing weed. But I remember alcohol was the most affordable in California. They treat you right down there.
Yeah. I can't complain. What's funny is when you bring that up, I don't know if you know, I used to live in Seattle, like way back in the day.
Nah, I did not know that at all.
When I went to school, I went to the Art Institute of Seattle. That's what I went for, right? I went there for music video business. This was back in 90? Yeah, 89, 90, right? So this is long time ago, old man days and whatnot.
I think I was like probably, second, third grade.
Thanks for that. Here I am, making moves in downtown Seattle, going to Queen Anne, going to all those spots and everything,
It's so literally different, right? Ever since Microsoft and Amazon came through. Have you been back? When's the last time you were up here?
Last time I was up in Seatown, I want to say it's been at least a good 10, 15 years.
Oh, wow.
been a minute.
So you haven't even seen it really since the transformation.
Nah, I remember last time I came back, there was some museum that was right up there. I can't remember what that street is parallel to Elliott. As you go uphill from Elliott, and then whatever that main drag is, there's a museum or like is it a music museum or something that's right down there. That wasn't there when I went to school. And I used to walk by there because I used to dorm over at Seattle U, right up there on Broadway.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I would take the bus. Do they still have the free bus like in the zone?
They have those express buses that are handled at the state level versus the city level.
Yeah.
But yeah, the infrastructure's had a lot of stress put onto it.
Oh, I bet.
The city has outgrown what it could handle.
Well, I remember when I moved up, that was right before Californians started buying up property. That was like the Seattle Gold Rush was just like, yo, we can get some property up here for cheap.
Compared to Cali.
I mean, relatively cheap for Californians anyway. And then all of a sudden, it was just like this migration of Cali folks going up north. And I remember it was just folks would be like mad, right? They were just illing on anybody California. You from California? And raising up our property taxes and all these other things, our property values. And I'm just like, hey, I'm just a student. I'm just renting.
It's like that, man. Transplants get a lot of animosity directed towards them, right? Fortunately for me, game devs, we roll thick as thieves.
Yep.
And luckily, a lot of homies is up here, right? Like Danny Bulla, Chris Barassa, and Brian Parody, a bunch of other homies. And through 1 degree or 2 degrees of separation, I know a whole bunch of people at Bungie. I know a whole bunch of people at Microsoft 343. Then I get my way in, right? I'm not like an outsider, so to speak. I don't get treated the same.
That's a good point about the industry, right? It's just incestuous like that. It's like, one person, a million people. You know what I'm saying?
If you're good.
Yeah.
Good. If you're not a dick.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like that whole Kevin Bacon, how many degrees of separation? It's like that. It's just crazy. But yeah, I mean, exactly. It's like, as long as you ain't a dick, then you generally know everyone knows you.
I feel like you could have Kevin Bacon levels of connections because I was super surprised to hear that you've been doing this since Sega Genesis days, 16-bit cartridges. Yeah. And I've been so looking forward to talking about this. But we mutually had an agreement. We walked through this. We talked about how we're going to Benjamin Button it.
Yep.
We're going to start from where you're at.
Yep.
And we're going to see where we end up.
Okay. Yeah. This is an experimentation type of thing. So let's do it.
Before we get going, man, I got a chance to reacquaint myself with your awesome photography. And something new that I'm privy to feels like you got your running legs back. You're running all up and down San Diego and all marathons and all this thing just for fun.
Yeah, I got a funny story about that. So what was it? Holiday of 2018. The wifey comes up to me and just out of the blue, she says, hey, babe, the La Jolla half marathon is coming up like in April. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, we should train for that. I think that'd be fun. Wouldn't that be fun? And I looked at her like she had a horn growing out of her head. And I'm just like, woman, when did you ever hear me talk about doing anything running and that would be fun? What makes you think in the 20 some odd years we've been married that running was actually ever something that I'd be interested in? She goes, oh, come on, it'd be fun. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. If you want to do it, I'll be at the finish line. I will celebrate you and all these other things, but no, I'm good. But she kept at it throughout the holidays, I think this
she
was like
started running.
So no, not necessarily. Let me get to the story because it's kind of fucked up, but it's kind of cool. But anyways, so
shout out to Miss Junio.
She kept, yeah, right. You know how she rolls.
I love her, man. I love her.
Man, she's just a little demon. But so she kept pestering throughout the holidays, right? I think it was on Halloween when she brought it up. Said no. Thanksgiving said no. Christmas said no. And it was just one of those things where she was just like, come on, babe, I think it'd be a lot of fun. We'd enjoy it. All these other things. And I'm just like, nah. And then I think training started like early February of 2019. And so right before like the end of the month on January, she goes, babe, training starts for this because there's a group that you can, join up with and stuff like that. You can run in groups. They have all different skill levels from folks who've done marathons to triathlons to just straight up beginners. And I'm like, nah, I'm all right. If you want to do it, babe, yeah, go ahead and do it. We'll go ahead and pay for it. And so what she did, she hit me with, well, babe, it's something that we can do together. We'd always been talking about like
couples activities,
right? Because we're empty nesting now. The daughter's away. She's married, got kids and all these other things. So it's just us. we've always been talking about like, hey, we should travel, do some things together. So she hit me on that level, dog. So of course, what am I going to say? I'm not going to be a dick and say, nah, babe, it's all good. Just run by yourself. I said, okay, you're going to come with that. All right, cool. I'll go ahead. And so we went for it, right?
20 years, man. 20 years. First time you guys want to run.
Yes, right?
That's awesome.
So signed up for it. We did the class. What happened was is that she got sick like the week leading up to the first session, right? But she was a trooper. She came out and joined us, and we did it. I think we only ran like 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles. And when I'm saying run, it wasn't really a run. It was like run for like a minute, walk for like another minute type of thing, right? To kind of build up your legs and your wind and whatnot. Yes. But she was still struggling with that. And then she ended up getting even more sick.
Damn, she stressed out the body on top of it, trying to recuperate and heal.
Right. I mean, this was even beforehand. And so it was one of those things where she didn't come to the next session because she was still sick and she got worse later in the week. And then I think she came for the third one, but then she got like maybe a little bit of a relapse type of thing. And long story short, she never came back.
Oh,
because one of those, because one of those things where 2 weeks became 4, that became 7. Sure. And then by that time we're trying to train for this marathon. And usually you want about 13 weeks of training.
Yeah, like 1 week for each mile.
By the time that she got well, she had already missed like half of it, right? And of course, me, I'm Filipino, so I'm cheap as fuck. I already paid for this shit, right? I'm going to do it, goddammit. If I just do one race, cool. At least I got my money's worth. So I went ahead and I continued doing it, right? And at first it was just like, why the hell am I doing this shit?
By yourself.
But as I started doing it, I started realizing, of course, benefits, started feeling better, losing weight. But then I realized it was a really great form of meditation for me where I can just kind of run.
Absolutely.
Some people listen to music. I like to listen to podcasts because music tends to kind of throw me off because it'll mess with my cadence. If like a banging song comes on, I'll be like Prefontaine, like, yeah, hell yeah, right? And then all of a sudden I'm like, I got no gas.
Yeah, it catches you off guard. Your body starts doing something that the head didn't approve of.
I ended up actually just falling in love with it. Ended up doing the half marathon. I did the La Jolla, which if you're familiar, a lot of hills. It goes through that state park up there.
That shit ain't fun, man. Them Torrey Pine Hills,
Oh, yeah. Exactly. And I remember everyone was asking me, goes, hey, you're running a marathon. What's your first? And I'm like, I'm doing the La Jolla half. And they'd be like, ooh, you're doing that as your first? And I'm like, what? I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Elevation is no joke.
But I finished it, and the rest was history. I've been running since.
You caught the bug.
Big time. Yeah, I ran my 5 this morning, so I'm feeling good.
That's the shit. What's your pace?
My pace, it varies when I'm like really trying to train. I'm trying to kind of do about 11 and a half minute mile around there.
Yeah,
I tried pushing it to do like, maybe a sub 10, and then I ended up actually kind of hurting myself.
Yeah, listen to your body.
Dog, I ain't a young buck like you.
You look good as hell, Jeff. You look good as hell right now, what I'm seeing, bro.
So I had to learn to listen to my body. I think that was the biggest thing that I've learned in the last couple of years. The mind is willing, the body isn't quite there. And I've gotten better at listening to it as opposed to like trying to fight through it.
That's key. Listen to your body and take care of yourself. I love it because I know back in the day, especially what we do, we're couch warriors, right? We're at a computer all day, bent over. The mind is doing all the work and the body's just kind of sitting there.
Sitting there, yep.
It's critical. It's critical for us to move, right? Like everything's in balance. For our mind to keep doing what it's doing at a high level, we got to let the body move and stretch and play and run and swim. And I want to emphasize, you live in the best place to live in game development, by the beach. You got sun almost practically year round. There's some fires you got to put up with from time to time. But it was hard to leave San Diego and move to the frigid northeast area of Montreal. But San Diego is where I put the most miles on my body, bro. Like, it just is so inviting to get out and get some sun, run by the beach. It's wonderful. And there's so many events, so many races. I'm so happy to hear when I caught wind and I saw your little notifications throughout the year. I'm like, my man's running half marathons for fun. Like, you're just running 13 miles just as like it's Tuesday. I'm like, damn. God damn, Hefe.
It's just weird how I got here. At the end of the day, it was just like, I never wanted to run, and now I'm all about that.
Wifey put you on, and where's she at?
I got bamboozled, dog. She bamboozled the shit out of me.
She's like, Hefe, I love you. I'm going to come up with this elaborate strategy to get you to drop some weight.
All right.
And then I'm going to love you even more.
Hey, God bless her. It worked. So it's all good. It's all good.
You are teaching all of us about longevity. And when I say longevity, you are still thick in the game. And you've made the shift from console to that crazy space of mobile free to play.
Right.
And it's a whole different world, man.
Dude.
And I just see you bobbing and weaving and rolling with the punches and chameleoning and doing what you got to do, learning the new tricks of the trade and giving back to the young bloods. I'm ready for you to lay it on me as to what goes on at Jam City and what you do over there.
Yeah, so you mentioned I'm at Jam City, formerly SGN.
That's what I knew them as, little cookie jam motherfuckers. Yeah.
Yeah, so when I started, it was 2014 when I came on, and we were SGN back then. And so you mentioned Cookie Jam, so that's the project that I'm on. So I'm the lead game designer for Cookie Jam. I had a team of about 13 designers.
That's bigger than I would have suspected for a mobile project.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's pretty crazy. Now it's through other projects and whatnot. I've lost a couple of people, but it's still like around 9. I have 9 designers that I'm managing and whatnot.
I think that's the sweet spot, bro. I feel like ideally you're managing 5 people, right? Like if you got money to spend, 10 if you're trying to stretch a dollar, right? But beyond 10, bro, I don't know how you do it.
It is a good number to be in just because in terms of just the logistics of managing, you talk about the kind of chameleon stuff. I mean, I wouldn't go that far for me, but that's kind of been my thing throughout my career where I've learned a lot of things along the way that kind of end up applying to me down the line, especially now. Outside of free to play, totally different model from traditional console development, traditional console design. It's just kind of like what this position specifically calls for is just management, right? And that's something that I never really ever did, right? And managing people. So it's just the whole management aspect of it and being a leader.
You're not creating anything. You're solely in management. So you have a clear separation.
Actually, no, I do both. So I'm still doing stuff on the other side of the ledger. There's multiple hats that I'm wearing, right? So there's one that I'm the manager, right? So I'm managing my team. Then I'm also working on features, right? So I'm doing design. So I'm still right in the middle of all that stuff.
Is that paper design or how does that manifest?
Let me backtrack then, because in order to kind of understand, it's like the idea of what free to play is. Right.
Word. That game is live all day, every day.
All day, every day. And it's being updated. There's always updates coming in, right? We have a regular cadence. So give you an example. Every Tuesday, we're dropping 20 new levels, right? Every Tuesday. So we have a cadence that just keeps going. It's a machine that just keeps moving and moving, right?
That would explain how you need 10 designers then.
Right? Because there's just an amount of content that just needs to be generated and continued supporting throughout the years. So that alone, you can just tell right there that that's a different kind of beast than what we're used to on console development, right?
Yeah, every week.
Right? It's interesting. Before I came to SGN, now Jam City, I was at Zynga. And that's really where I got my lessons as far as free to play, as far as the mobile space.
Zynga was trailblazing that space early on. Facebook gaming days, they were teaching everybody else how to really make money in this space.
That's where I started learning because generally speaking, you can't go into free to play mobile space with a console development design centric point of view or approach. Just look at what the final product is, right? You're talking about console development. You're talking about PC game development. Usually, at least back in my day, it was a disc, right? Or a cart. Now it's, some DL. It's something that you would get off from whatever portal, whatever it is that you're going to be downloading from. But at the end of the day, you're still downloading or you're still getting a final product. Right?
Yeah.
That you're developing. You've been working on it for however long, and now it's released to the public, and now it's for them to consume. Nowadays, obviously with patches, whatnot, you can fix things, but at least back in my day, it's like once it was out, and you couldn't, do anything about it. Now it's constant. It's on 24/7, like you mentioned, right? And we're always sending out new events, new levels, and obviously constantly patches or just fixes or updates, right? And so for me, that was kind of the mind shift that I needed to take, where it's just like, no, this thing's happening all the time. So that was my first real adjustment, was this idea of like, oh, this is happening all the time. I had to kind of switch up my thinking and switch up my approach. That's just in terms of operational type of things. Now you start getting into design. Well, It's free to play, which means that, hey, the game itself is free. You can go ahead and download it from whatever you want, from the Apple Store or whatever choice of portals are to download the app. And how do they make their money? Well, they make their money from all these transactions, these little microtransactions. That's how they make their money. So real quick primer, usually what ends up happening is that we put the player to a point where they need to make a decision, right? And that decision usually hinges on time, right?
Yep.
You mentioned Zynga. Their big thing back in the day was like, hey, you can get a bunch of lives. You get 5 or 6 of them. You lose those lives by losing a level. After X amount of time, you get another life replenished. Mm-hmm. And so that started basically this whole thing in terms of like, okay, well, hey, if you get 5 lives and you run out of lives, you can either A, wait for another 5-10 minutes or however long, that rate is to get another life. Yep. Or, hey, spend another 10 coins, 25 coins, whatever it is, right? And we'll give you another life. And it's just like, okay, cool. And some people will be like, I'll just go ahead and wait, right?
Yeah,
for
sure.
that 10, 15 minutes.
How valuable is your time?
Exactly.
Right? Or how urgent or pressing is the challenge that got you, right? Yeah, I could definitely see that hook and that loop of like, oh, you think I'm not good enough, huh? All right. Let me get back into this. Here, take $1, take $2, take $3. Right. I'll show you.
And then they just extrapolated that. And then they actually now start applying it to the actual winnability of a level, right? So you get to the end of a level and you're almost there, right? You're one or two objectives, or you're almost within sight of the finish line. You're so close. You're this close. What are you going to do? And it's like, oh, hey, maybe you want another 5 more moves. Maybe you want another 5 more energy, whatever it is, right? For you to be able to cross that finish line or beat that level. Hey, 10 coins, come on, right?
Mm-hmm. I like that it's not just one currency or one type of attack vector. Mm-hmm. It's really anything and everything. If I'm willing to pay for it, why not? Why not give it to me?
Exactly. Right? And the little dirty secret is that those levels are designed very specifically to do that. We elicit that where it's just like we're play testing these bad boys. We're making sure like, hey, you can almost beat this level and you might be 1 or 2 objectives short. You might be just an inch or 2 short of that finish line. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, hey, this happens quite a bit. No shit. We kind of do it by very specifically.
By design.
Exactly.
Let me ask you. If you have, let's say, 1 million person player pool, I'm sure the top 10% of players can get through it without having to buy anything.
Yep.
So if you're really good, you never have to pay anything, but you have invested the time to get that good. And if you haven't invested that time to get that good, you just invest your wallet. And so that's how it kind of equals. I think that's a fair trade-off, man.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't want to get into numbers, but you'd be surprised where it's a relatively small percentage of what we call DAU, right, your daily active users, where they're actually the ones who are, quote unquote, paying for this game.
The ones that come back every day.
Right, come back every day and actually spend. So it's interesting, right? We're okay with like, hey, 90 whatever percent, 80 whatever percent, right, of our players who don't ever pay. We're good with that. We're good with that. But the remainder, if they actually pay, you'd be surprised. Oh, man.
I see that you guys got studios all up and down California. You got it in SoCal, L.A., the Bay. You got it in Berlin. You got it in Bogota. You got them all over the world, man. So it's a good business model, apparently.
Yeah, when I first got in, dude, it took me a little bit to wrap my head around it. It took me a minute.
What my biggest appreciation for it is, and I read books and went to conferences trying to wrap my head around all the behavioral sciences and the economics of it. When I was at Amazon and we're trying to push AWS cloud services and why people need them, that was the biggest thing, bro, is the player metrics and analytics. It's what are they doing in the first level? What are they doing as soon as they log in? When do they leave? What do we need to do to kind of get them to click one more time? You know, and so when you have all that data, you have so much information to inform your design live. That's what intrigues me the most as a designer, Jefe, is to have access to like that second-to-second feedback, right? Because in AAA, I'm designing kind of in a vacuum amongst my peers of fellow developers that like, all right, this is the best thing we can do for our player base, right? But we're really just guessing.
Right. It's your perspective. At the end of the day, it's kind of like your call thinking like, I think this is cool. And maybe the common player is kind of like me, but really at the end of the day, like you said, it's like, you're kind of taking a stab in the dark in some cases.
We'll have play tests, right? We'll have play tests as often as possible, but it cannot compete at the scale of you guys live week over week testing. And do you guys do any type of market A/B testing? Like you'll try something on one side, try something on another side.
Yeah, we're testing the hell out of everything. So we have different variants, different types, and just you brought up a great point, is the kind of the psychology of game design and what resonates with people. It was one of those things where it's just like I went into it convinced that approach A was the way to go, maybe B. I was wrong. It was C. C was like the last thing that I would even have thought of. And I'm just like, whoa, that's just crazy.
I love it because it becomes a less subjective game. What I mean by that is in design, it's super easy to go back and forth and have conversations for weeks and months about like the design and the approach and the power up and how hard or how easy. Yeah. And with what you guys do, you can't argue the data. The data comes back right in your face. And it's like, yo, this is what they need. This is what they want.
Yeah.
I love that.
But, the flip side to that, though, is this idea then that sometimes you're a little bit too beholden to data.
Ooh, interesting. Talk me through that.
Yeah, because sometimes you'll have folks that's what they're looking at. The analysts, they're looking at analytics, they're looking at the data. And so one of the things that like when I first started, when I was at Zynga, was they were very analytics driven. Not to say that a lot of mobile companies aren't, right? I mean, every mobile company is, and maybe a lot of non-mobile companies are as well. I mean, at this point in time, like you mentioned, you'd be an idiot not to pay attention to the analytics, right? To not even at least give it some credence and at least see what the data is telling you. Mm-hmm. So when I first got into Zynga, it was almost like, okay, a lot of these decisions were being driven by the analytics, right? Wasn't necessarily about design. And me coming old school design, right? There is a certain kind of Zen artistic kind of thing about design.
Absolutely. There's a feel to it, right? It's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum of hard data.
Exactly. And so that took me a little bit to kind of really get used to and embrace, right? And now it's just one of those things where I understand it. And as we are now getting more and more into this, when I started Zynga, that was in 2011 is when I started at Zynga.
Yeah, that's when the mobile free-to-play wave was really coming in.
And now we've learned some things, it's, been a good 10 years since then. So that gap is starting to lessen. And now we're able to better marry some more traditional design elements or things that we consider traditional design elements in console and PC gaming to the mobile space. But again, at the end of the day, the data is going to talk, right? The data is going to rule the day. Analytics are going to what's going to carry, the water for you.
I'm happy that they make room for the design OGs to come in and bring balance to the force, right? If they're kind of heavily indexed on behavioral sciences and economics and mathematician style, right? That you can come in from the creative side and kind of tilt the scale a little bit to be like, there's still something to be said for player pacing, player feel, challenge, things like that. I love that, Jefe. I love that you're there carrying the torch still through and through, where these young bucks can't just come through and just completely disavow everything we've built since the 70s.
So a funny story actually just happened to me today. I had a meeting and we were doing some basically some R&D, like some focus group type of stuff for an upcoming feature. So
for people on the outside looking in, when you say focus group, is that like people in the room behind like a two-way mirror kind of thing?
Yeah, basically. Okay. They're being shown something, whether it's actually something in game or maybe it's just mock-ups.
Do you have like eye tracking and all that shit?
No, we don't have that. We're not that sophisticated. We don't got like, Microsoft money or any Facebook type of money.
Dude, when I heard about that shit, I was like, yo, it's another level. There's levels to this shit and I'm not on that level, man.
Right, measuring pheromones and like pulse rates, and all that. No, we're not quite there yet.
Fair.
Yeah, so we're basically wanting to get a sense of them for like an upcoming feature and just asking questions. And they brought up something about a past feature that's related to the one that we're doing right now. And they asked them about it and they were like, yo, I really like the characters in that one. And they really love like this one person specifically brought up the names of the different characters. And I'm just like, Yo, because I came up with most of the names on those.
Character design, narrative design.
Right. And it was just, I mean, it's something so super minor, but that was like 2 years ago that this feature that we were referencing went out. And it was one of those things where in a hot minute, I'm like, yo, I got it. I got this unlocked. Listen to these names, and I'm dropping these names. This is straight fire. And everyone was like, yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Right. You know, like being so nonchalant about it. And I'm just like, man, you don't even know, whatever. And then 2 years pass. No one said nothing, right? It was just like, okay, whatever, fine. I dropped that sword a long time ago. I'm just like, whatever. But this gal brought it up today. She goes, no, I love the names. They're so cute and they're so clever and all these other things. And she couldn't see me, but I just went nuts. I'm just like, 2 years. It took 2 years, but hey, I got that recognition, so it's all good.
Boom, validation.
Right? That validation. Man, I'll take it.
Hey, I'm with you, bro. I don't care. I don't give a shit when it comes. As long as it comes and I'm not the only one to hear it, I'm at peace. It would all have been worth it right there.
All good.
What type of names?
So we had these pets that we had put into Cookie Jam, right? Because when Cookie Jam first released, we didn't have a meta. Mm-hmm. And so we added pets to the game, and the pets have very specific powers. They'll go after very specific things in the game. And of course, if you're familiar with Cookie Jam, it's all baking, dessert related items.
That's the theme.
And so the pets, we had like dogs and cats. So we had the dog that would go, his name is Checkers. He would go after waffles. We had a cat, his name is Duncan. Any guesses what Duncan might go after?
Donuts?
Boom. Right here, baby. Pure genius right here.
Yo, that's why they pay you the big bucks, Hefe.
Right? Yeah, but yeah, no, it was great. As soon as she said that, I was just like, I was on cloud nine. You couldn't tell me nothing for the rest of the day, make me feel bad.
You bring in the craft to the machine. I love it.
I mean, never mind that it was a good feature and people love it. It was just the fact like, yo, these names are hot. They're popping. No one's even saying nothing about this. Are you kidding me?
I gotta admit, I got hooked on Cookie Jam. I had my little 2-3 months where this was all I was doing. I even got my partner on it at the time. We were
competing.
Our couple's time was spent individually on our tablets, right? Like trying to get past each other.
Come back. There's pets waiting for you. Checkers and Duncan, they waiting for you.
I want to check out Checkers and I want to check out Duncan. It may have to happen. I want to go back to what your approach is to being a lead. And the reason I want to touch on that is because I've had the whole spectrum of quote unquote leads, right? I have leads that were a lead because they were super good at what they did. And because they were super good at what they did, they knew the tools and everything. They were kind of given ownership of the content. But that didn't necessarily set them up to succeed at managing people, for better or for worse.
Yep.
And then I've been on the other end of the spectrum where having a lead that worked with me to find out what I was best at, protected me from and shielded me from the shit that I sucked at, and worked with me to find out what motivated me and helped me get to the next level. And it was day and night. And in both of these situations, it's not necessarily up to the person, right? It's kind of the institution and the system where they are given trainings and they're giving materials to learn how to manage people. And that makes a world of fucking difference, bro. Oh, yeah. And it pains me to see when people are subjected to the lead that just kind of got the job because he's kind of the most senior person or experienced with the tools or whatever. So I'd love for you to take me through how you approach being a lead, because it seems like you take it seriously.
No, for sure. So it's interesting, right? Because the traditional model usually, at least in game development, right, is like, hey, whoever knows actually the job the best, right? And usually that means like, hey, they're a good designer, they're with it, really, in tune with that.
They're accountable.
That tends to be the folks who get pushed, right, into those kind of management roles. But like you said, actually managing people, that's a totally different thing. That's a totally different skill set.
Absolutely.
Way totally different skill set. It was one of those things where I didn't realize how difficult it was until I actually had 12, 13, 10 people, right?
Did they kind of throw you in, boom, here you go, 13 direct reports, or it kind of grew little by little?
When I became lead, it's been about what now, maybe 4 years. The design department was, I want to say about maybe 6 or 7. So it's still a good amount.
Okay.
Still a good amount. And then it just grew from there. Now, the first lesson that I learned, and for those of you who are listening and you ever get into this position, especially if you get put into a management position or higher up type of position, the way I operated, my MO, my modus operandi was, I'm going to keep doing what I did to get into the spot. Plus, I'm going to go ahead and do some other things, right? So I'm going to add on to it, right? I'll be like, yo, I'm holding on to everything. Plus, I'm going to do all the new stuff that I've got coming up, right? Wrong.
That's unsustainable. You may be able to keep that up.
Exactly. And finally, it got to a point where I learned very quickly, yo, I can't sustain this. And I need to start handing some stuff off.
Delegation.
Yeah, delegating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for a guy like me, it's just like I'm used to doing stuff, right? Like, it's the if you want it done right, you do it yourself type of mind frame.
That was the way at Rockstar, to be fair. We all had our own little individual slice of the pie, and it was all up to us to do the lifting to get that thing across the finish line.
Yep. And you just realize very quickly, it's just like, yo, not to say that it can't be done, but man, you're burning the candle on both ends.
Yeah. If you want to commit 100% of your life to the job, sure. But if you want to sustain.
And I've done that already, dog.
You've been there. You
learned. I don't need to do that. I don't want to do that.
This is why I'm super honored that you're on the show, Jefe, because it's rare. I got looked up, man. I was at some conference. I don't know if it was like the GDOC Expo or what it was, but it was straight up that the average developer game dev lifespan was definitely not double digits. Mm-hmm. It was much shorter than that. Mm-hmm. So to survive and sustain, you got to do things differently. You got to do things smart. Right. And you are walking, living proof that you can survive in this industry, but you got to put your boundaries.
So it's actually from our Rockstar days. This is before your time.
Yeah. So what was this, like Midnight Club time?
It was Midnight Club time. Yes, it was. Right. So I used to work with this cat, the fellow designer named AJ. AJ and I used to have this thing. We always talked about what's the lifespan of this industry for designers, especially for old cats like us. I'm older than him, but he's not that far behind me.
I like to use the word seasoned. I don't like to use the word old. Seasoned.
Sure. Seasoned, veteran. And we talked about that. And back then, Rockstar, right? Everybody knows it was rough back then. It was their way to highway type of thing. You're getting in at 7 or 8, sun is down. You're leaving about 7 or 8, maybe 9, sun is still down. So that means you missed the entire damn sun throughout that entire day.
And you're living in SoCal, man.
Yeah, right.
The beautiful days are just passing you by.
I mean, if this were the case, put me in fucking Antarctica or North Pole where it's naturally not going to, you're not going to see sun.
Hey, shout out. I think that's what they do with their Edinburgh studio. Up there, they got kind of similar to Seattle weather. Shout out to the people that would escape intelligently for lunch. They would go out, hit the beach, surf, run, work out, and then come back and pump it out.
Back to AJ. So we had this thing where we finally developed this idea, or just the saying rather, of like, well, dude, can you see yourself being in this industry? At the time I was like 35, 34-ish, and so he wasn't that far behind me, maybe late 20s, early 30s. Yo, can you see yourself in this industry for another 15, 10, 20 years? And we're like, hell no. If it's this way, hell no. Straight up. And so we developed this thing, right? We were like, sometimes I'd walk by him or he walked by me, and one of us would just say to the other, 5-0, and the other one would say, hell no. So the idea...
Yeah, you're not going to make it to 50.
We're not going to get to 50. I'm not going to get to 50 and be in this industry. There's no way I can sustain this shit. No way we can do that. And that's a fair thing, right, to think about. It was just like, no, I honestly thought at that point in time, it's like my shelf life, maybe I had another 10 years at best, 5 years for sure. And I'm starting to think like, well, what am I going to do? I've known nothing but game development basically my entire adult life. What am I going to do? You know?
I'm with you on that, man. The transition I made to Amazon was a kind of horizontal shift, right? Because it was still games, but it was like big corporation. There was a lot to learn there, but I'm with you 100%, man. I can't see myself outside of games. I can't see myself with no like reporting and wearing a certain type of clothing and be here by this time, leave by this time, and shit like that. Like, nah, bro. I need to create. I need to design. I need to get my crazy ideas out there. And definitely I need to be playing games, for sure.
Yep. Everyone poo-poos Rockstar, right? And I'm certainly one of the biggest poo-pooers, especially after I got let go and all the other stuff. But, that's understandable. You get cut off, girlfriend dumps you, that type of thing. You're going to be a little salty, right?
I'm with you, bro. Rockstar let me go. I always compare Rockstar to that mistress, right? That like kind of demands all your time.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as she finds something better,
something
cheaper,
new, yep.
something newer,
uh-huh.
It's like, oh, peace, I don't know you anymore.
Right.
I will say this, man. They open up doors for me. Everything I have now, everything where I've been in this industry is because of what I was able to give to them and what they were able to give back to me. So I got stories with you, Jefe, but at the end of the day, I'm where I am today because I worked alongside you. We pumped out games like Red Dead Redemption, and it gave me thick ass fucking skin.
Yeah.
Where anywhere else I go afterwards,
oh yeah,
I look at it and be like, yo, this is easy.
Dude.
This is easy.
I got to tell you, before the pandemic, right?
All right, so this is like 2019, early 2020?
Yeah. One of my designers came up to me and was just like, not really complaining. I don't want to say complaining, but just kind of like, yo, why are you doing this to us? We have a cadence and all these other things. And then we had to double stuff up because it was coming up for the holidays. Well, we got the 2 weeks off, right? That type of thing.
Yeah, I bet you guys make a bunch of downloads and DAU acquisitions around that time.
Right. But we have the time off. So we needed to basically do a little bit of double time, that type of thing. And we had to double time for like maybe a good month and a half, 2 months, because we have to prep for it so that once the holidays come, once Christmas come, we're on lock for 2 weeks, right? We can just set it and forget it.
Yeah. Nobody's touching anything. Nobody's submitting anything.
Well, Zina came up to me. He's like, yo, man, this is too much, right? And I'm just like looking at him like, are you kidding me? Dude, and I don't want to be like, the old man of the river, right? Old man river saying like, yo, right? Went to school 10 miles uphill both ways with dogs attacking you, right? Through barbed wire fences, right? I didn't want to be that guy, but I had to be like, yo, dude, you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about, right? Let me tell you. And then I went into it and I told him about like all my stuff and all the stuff I went through at Rockstar, and 3DO and all these other things, right? And I'm just like, dude, you don't even know. Yo, millennials, y'all soft as fuck.
You straight up cotton candy, bro. You straight up Jello.
You toilet paper that got wet.
Yo, Jefe, I love laughing about this. But I mean, in all seriousness, though, how did you kind of motivate the individual? How did he respond to that shit? Like, where was kind of the give and take in that?
It's tough to tell somebody, yo, you don't know, right, how hard it is, right? But it is one of those things where I try to, in as much as I can, relate my experiences. Yeah. Right. And say, hey, this is what I had to deal with. Right. And I'm not saying that your truth is not your truth. Right. Everyone's truth is their truth.
Absolutely.
Everyone's experience is their experiences. And I'm not trying to sit here and discount that. But what I am telling you, though, is that there is this thing called perspective. And I have the perspective of at least going through that and at least you understanding and knowing like, hey, yeah, it could be a lot worse. And maybe on some levels, you just have to take it at face value, whether you believe me or not. Really, at the end of the day, I think that's really what it boils down to. I'm as honest with them as I possibly can be. And I think that's really the one thing that I try to do is be very honest, try to be very transparent with them, right? Even if it's shit that I don't want to tell them, even if it's shit that's not good, it's like, yo, I need to just be as transparent with you so that you know that I'm on the up and up with you, right? And that's always the one thing that I always wanted is just to be honest, have an honest discussion. And even if it's shit that's difficult to talk about.
Yes. Yo, thank you for saying that, Jefe, because the worst experiences in my career have been when I get kind of the FaceTime and lip service where it's like, oh yeah, everything's all good and smiles and shit when shit is not all good.
Yeah.
And shit could be much better. So when I interview and when I talk to managers and whatever team I'm coming on to, I tell them straight up that I'm looking for transparency. Every one-on-one I have with my boss, a boss's boss, I'm like, yo, what could I be doing better? I'm going to tell you what you could be doing better so that I could do a better job.
Right.
And so I never want to be caught blindsided again because I've been there early in my career because I made the mistake of trusting my manager, being like, oh, yeah, everything is sweet. Everything's all good. And then it's like, hey, guess what? We're letting you go. I was like, yo, but that shit doesn't add up, bro. Something's missing there in that equation. So now I disarm them. I don't give them that opportunity. So I love what you're saying, bro. You keep it 100, you keep it real, you keep it transparent, and I hope that builds that trust so that they can be 100 and transparent with you, right? To come up to you and complain, even when you feel like, yo, you have no fucking reason to be complaining, but let me hear you out.
Yes,
and let's see how we adjust, right? Or modify your workload with, you know, the other people around you, kind of thing. I'm curious, is that a balancing act of being a manager?
For sure, right? You know, I mean, obviously it's about taking, because I have my experience and my perspective on things, right? But again, that's my truth. And so I understand that's not going to resonate with everybody or anybody really, for that matter, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like I try to look at it from that person's perspective. And in the example that I gave, right, where they were complaining about it, and I said, you know what, I understand and I get it. And I apologize. What can I say? To that end is all I can really say is like, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we need to do. I appreciate you, right? I appreciate you, you know, putting in the effort. And what I did for that team, you know, is after the fact, you know, and I know it was a small thing, but you know, for me, I'm all about gestures, right? And trying to at least make sure, like, I'm showing appreciation. So I ended up taking my team out, right? You know, we went out for some beers. You know, we went to a local brewery. You know, San Diego, right? A bunch of breweries,
yes.
A lot of eateries.
Which one?
So we ended up going to the Belgian Beaver.
Oh, I know the Belgian Beaver, bro.
Right over there on Vista, right? On Vista. Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing is, I buy Belgian Beaver peanut butter stout up here. I love this stuff up here. That's what it is. I probably haven't gone there. I feel like I've been to the OB one. I don't think I've been to the Vista one.
Come on through, buddy. We'll go there as soon as this COVID bullshit's done. Come on down. We going.
I appreciate you so much, brother, because one half of this podcast is putting the young bloods on, putting the next generation on so that we can bring more diversity, more different personalities and experiences to this industry, right? Because everybody wants to be a motherfucking pro gamer and streamer and shit, but who's going to be making the games, right? We need more people making the games. But the other side of it is this fucking pandemic has got me fucked up, and I miss connecting with my peers and talking bullshit and talking about the craft. Hey, I found out that your collegiate stomping grounds was up here, so I look forward to being able to show you and the missus all the breweries and the food and everything that's come up here.
Can't wait.
And I definitely want to take Mrs. Diaz down there in San Diego. Last time we was all down there was for Marcellus's wedding.
Wedding. Yep. Still can't believe that fool's married, but yeah.
Yo, he found him a good one, man.
Man, for sure, right? And she's an angel. Jocelyn's an angel.
When I say fits him so well, it's just that, like, if he's a yang, she's the yin. That fit in that yang so good.
I'm making fun at Celis, you know, at his expense, but man, no, I'm so damn happy for him, man. It was great, you know, seeing that, seeing you. You know, you and the missus, you know, so it was all good. That day was just nothing but love.
It's good times, man. There's an unfortunate saying that you catch up with the most people at funerals or weddings. I hope that the pandemic has taught us, even connecting like this, connecting virtually, this is valuable. This is valuable when we can't be face to face, but we're building the social currency so that as soon as we can get back on planes and come down, you know, this is going to happen.
Man, you know, I got a feeling everyone's going to go fucking buck wild as soon as this thing is ready to go. I got a feeling.
You know what I want? I want like a vaccine phone tool kind of thing. I'll be like, yo, I got the vaccine. I'm good. I'll keep my fucking mask on. Let me in. Don't let anybody behind me that doesn't have the same shit and is going to be anti-mask. I feel like I've been doing what I need to do so that the world can get back to normal.
Yup.
And we should be able to get back together with people that are respecting it.
You know, sometimes I want currency, right? Like, yo, if you've been following the rules, you've been a good person, yo, you get some currency. When this shit is done, you be able to, like, how much currency you got, dog? You got 500 or more? Yeah, I got 500 or more. Cool. You good. You got 250? Dog, you got some time. You got to wait a little bit, right? Because that's what I kind of feel like. We got to gamify this shit.
Gamification, motherfucker. Gamification, Hefe. My wife has learned it too. Catherine has learned that I respond so well to clear metrics and goals and be like, yo, if you do the dishes X amount of times or take the dog here, then yeah, go ahead and game or go ahead and podcast or whatever. I'm like, yo, that makes sense to me. It's these fuzzy logic math rules where it's like, oh yeah, depending on how I feel, shit changes. I'm like, I can't work with that, bro. Yeah. I'm too logical. But I mean, yo, you tell me, Hefe, you've been married for over 20 years. What words of wisdom can you impart? I think we were like, we had a 3-year anniversary early February 2nd.
Yeah.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Hefe. It's been a journey.
I bet. I can imagine.
Let me know, bro. What words of wisdom do you have to give for anybody in a partnership or relationship, right? Like that could be with your boss, your job, your romantic partner, your pet, whatever.
We're talking about a significant other, so I'm going to talk about the wife. I think for me, what I learned, right, and it took me a minute, was getting to a point where I had to realize that it's not just about me. And I know that sounds really basic, but when we got together, it wasn't so much the idea of us becoming one. It was her and me coming together, and it's us. But there was still that kind of weird separation. And it's not a separation in that we weren't together, but it was a separation of mindset maybe.
Okay.
And for me, it was really about getting to a place where I needed to start thinking about us as one, right? And how taking her point of view, her feelings into consideration. Not to say that I wasn't, but maybe I really wasn't as in tune with that as I needed to be. Not to say that I'm changing my world perspective or my opinions to match hers. No. I'm not saying that at all. But giving her the space to breathe and to express those things and not necessarily discount them or to validate them one way or the other. And just say, okay, well, I understand. Now, I disagree, and I disagree for these reasons. But that doesn't mean that you're wrong. And I think that's really where it came from, right? Where I realized like, hey, we can both be right and the other person doesn't have to be wrong. That was the big kind of thing for me where I finally realized that, where it's just like, it's not a zero sum type of thing.
Hey,
right?
Man. Hey, that's where gamification gets the fuck out of the way for relationships. Absolutely.
If you want to gamify, get on fucking Xbox Live. Marriage, that's not going to work. Trust me, that shit ain't not going to work.
You dropping knowledge, man, and I really love what you're saying. There's a you, there's a her, and there's the us, right? There's a you and her together. It's 3 separate entities. You guys need your space to be yourselves.
Right.
And when you come together, that's a different being altogether.
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing that when I look back on my conflicts, has been this kind of feeling of judgment, right? And it could come from wherever. It's like, your work is not good enough or whatever, right? And so that always puts somebody on guard and puts you kind of on the defensive. So thank you for sharing that, because being judgment free, letting people come as they are, right? Like, hey, I'm sharing my perspective with you. You may not agree with it, but exactly how you said, it doesn't mean it's wrong. And that makes the whole world a difference. It's like, I can keep coming back to you with my perspectives and viewpoints and not feel like I'm being judged or labeled as the way I look at things is wrong, because it's my subjective perspective. That's all it is.
It's your truth. So, salute to that, brother. Clinkety clink. Of course, we're talking about Jam City. That's where I'm at currently, lead game designer.
Are you guys hiring?
Yes, we are. We are hiring.
Yeah, that's great news for listeners out there looking to get into mobile game development. What qualities, skills, experience do you look for in a design candidate for your team?
Actually, and it really depends, right? If we're looking for somebody senior, obviously that has its own requirements and experience that we're looking for versus somebody that's maybe more of an associate. So I'm going to jump actually to associate because I think that will apply to most of the listeners, especially those that are new to the industry or think about getting into the industry. So for me, and I do a lot of hiring. I'm the hiring manager for my team. And so one, I just look for, can you explain why you did what you did, right? Again, it's not necessarily the idea that you're right or wrong, right? But I want you to be able to explain to me in a very precise and clear way of the decisions that you made. Why did you do this? We do design tests all the time. We give them design tests, create, however many levels.
Are they like cookie jam design tests?
Cookie jam design test. Yep. Match 3 games. And I'll ask them like, hey, I noticed in this level you did this, you did that. Why did you go about it? I'm not looking to find something like, but I want them to explain to me their design process, their design thoughts, what went through their mind. Why did they go through that? Because then I can at least take that and understand like, hey, there's a thought there and they try to execute it. I want to get that sense of what are you thinking and can you explain to me why you thought that? And then the execution is speaking to that. Then I'll ask them, well, how effective do you think you were in that regards?
There's like an element of self-awareness, self-analysis.
Right. And not just I thought it was going to be fun or I thought it was going to be cool. We hear that all the time as designers. Oh, it's kind of cool. What the fuck is cool about it? Right?
That's the default answer.
Right? It's cool. Okay, cool. But tell me why it's fucking cool. I hear that shit all the fucking time. I've been hearing that for like 30 some odd years. Get the fuck out of here. What's cool about it? I lost you.
Y'all been hearing this shit for 30 fucking
right?
years.
It's cool. It's so cool, man. Cool. But tell me why is it cool? So there's that. And then the other part of it too is, can you be taught? Can you listen?
Oh.
Right?
Church.
Can you get out of your own damn way? I'm not saying that what we do is the right way or that it's the perfect way, but for our game, it's what works for us, right?
Church.
Now, I'm going to be open to other ideas, but you better sell me on it, right? And again, it goes back to the whole idea of like, hey, can you explain to me your thought process, right? And then if you can, then I'm like, okay, well then, shit, maybe we should go ahead and try that. Let's go ahead and do a test for that.
That's an interesting paradigm where you have to have some conviction to believe in your ideas and be able to convey them clearly and eloquently and sell them, but also be open to feedback and sculpting, you know what I'm saying? Because more often than not, what we do is not the result of one person. It's the result of many people in that pot, right? Contributing and touching. And I really like those words of wisdom.
Really, that's what I'm looking for is like, how willing are you to listen? Because I've run into a lot of people who are super talented, know what the hell they're doing, but they're very kind of like, well, no, I know what I'm doing. Not to say they're close-minded, but, you know, along those lines. And it's just like, okay, well, then maybe this place is not for you.
Fair.
Right?
That's something to be cognizant of as well, right? Like, just because you don't get in somewhere doesn't mean that you're not good.
Yeah.
It just means that you're not a proper fit. You're not going to do your best work on that team. That's all. Right. That's all it means.
Yeah. And, you know, you touched on it. You hit the nail on the head. It's like, it's really about a fit, right? At the end of the day, it's like, I've ran into a bunch of people who are just super damn talented and know what the hell they're talking about, but a personality fit, probably not. They would be raising too many waves, you know, causing too many waves, you know, causing problems, you know, whatever the case may be. And it's just like, you know, and then with me being the manager, I don't need that.
You don't need that, bro. Especially when you're trying to drop updates every week, bro. You don't need that.
That would be my advice, right? You know, obviously know your craft. One thing I really appreciate about Jam City and the position I'm in is the opportunity that we can give to people who haven't necessarily gone through the route like maybe you have, right? Or some of the bolas of the world, right? Where you guys went to school, right? And you learned this stuff, right? And it's just like, I've actually hired a bunch of people who didn't actually have any previous experience.
Oh, wow. Taking a chance?
I mean, we vet them as well as we can. They did well on the test and they're interviewed by everybody on the team. So it's not just me. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I tend to have the final say. I will obviously take everybody's opinion and perspective, you know, take that and consider it and then move forward with that.
Do you guys have like gladiator style, thumbs up, thumbs down?
We actually would have meetings like that. Yeah, for sure.
I would imagine that's very motivational for someone looking on the outside looking in to be like, hey, I don't have experience. I haven't done this before. Do I have a shot? Now,
don't get me wrong. You're going to need to come correct because obviously at the end of the day, it's like if there's somebody that has some experience versus somebody who has zero experience and maybe their tests are about equal or a push, I'm probably going to lean towards the person that has some experience, more than likely, to be honest. But we have hired people who don't have any previous experience. You know, and so what I will look at it, like professional experience, I should say. Well, then what I will also look at then is I will look at like, well, what have you done on your own? Because that for me is really the big thing. It's like, well, if you haven't had proper experience, because not many people do, not many people are afforded that opportunity. Then, well, what are you doing on your own? Oh, well, I'm getting into Unity, right? I'm getting into all of these different programs. I'm making my own thing. I'm going to place more emphasis on that because, that person wants to do something. They're actually making things happen, right? I'm looking for that.
Be driven, be doing the thing on your free time, learning, make sure that you can learn. And as well, you are playing the shit out of your games. I always expect this out of anybody. And it always surprises me when it's like they haven't played the games of the place they're interviewing.
For real. That's
crazy.
Yeah. If you're going to be interviewing at Jam City, you better be telling me about, Cookie Jam, Panda Pop, all those fucking games, Harry Potter. If you don't know nothing, I'll be like, dog, what are you doing? Right? You're going to interview at Ford and you don't know nothing about Mustangs. You don't know nothing about, the F-150s. Get the fuck out of here.
Get out of here. Wasting my time. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. I think those are super powerful words of wisdom that will resonate with anybody. Anybody trying to get in, trying to break in, or trying to make the jump from like indie into mobile or even into AAA. The same affordances still apply. I would say 100%.
That runs the gamut despite any type of discipline. If you're in art, fucking do your own shit, right? Get into it. Start doing some projects, work on some things on your own. If you're into coding, well, what have you done? Right? What projects have you worked on? Show me that you've done something. You're in the design. What have you done? Right? What's some of the things that you've worked on? And, I've had people who will give me their portfolios or they'll give me like, hey, here's a link to my game. And they're shitty games. But I'll ask them about it, right? And I'll go, well, hey, what was your process? Why did you do this? Right? And then if they explain to me why they did that, I'm like, okay, cool. What did you learn from it? Right? And then they'll tell me these things. And I'm like, all right, this person knows what they're doing. I can work with that. That's somebody that I can work with.
You can collaborate.
Exactly.
They can show you their thought process. You can collaborate them. They're willing to take feedback. They're willing to learn. Those are the type of teammates I vibe with. Absolutely.
Okay, Jefe, let's get back to talking about you, your career. What are you up to today? And let's step through it.
All right. So Jam City, I'm there right now. Been there since 2014. I started off as just a game designer. I'm current lead game designer. Before that, Zynga, right? I was there from 2011 to 2014. I actually went back to QA, right? So I was the alpha QA there from 2011 to 2014. Like I said, I worked on Cafe World, Ninja Kingdom, Bubble Safari, all these games, right? And that was over in San Diego. That's when they opened the San Diego branch over in Zynga. But prior to that, I was at Rockstar Games in San Diego over in Carlsbad from 2003 to 2010. Right. So I was there. I was there for a hot minute. I was there. I actually got hired for a project. If you might have heard about it, was Agent. That's what I was brought in for.
I got a little insight on that thanks to the Benja interview. So as I understand it, you brought him in.
Yep, I did.
And then you guys are both on Agent. And then a fork happened, right? And then he went on to table tennis. And I don't know what happened with you. I don't know where you went.
So yes, I got brought on for Agent. That's what I was hired on for. And then I ended up bringing Ben. And Ben and I had worked with each other at 3DO. That's how we hooked up, right? Prior to Rockstar. And so I'm like, yo, Ben, you interested? Because at the time, Ben was in programming, which I'm sure you know, right, from what he was talking about. Right. So that's how I knew him at 3DO. But when I left for San Diego for Rockstar, he was telling me like, yo, I'm thinking about going into game design. And I'm like, all right, well, let me see what I hear. And then if I hear anything, I'll let you know. We were hiring for Agent. I gave Ben a holler and he's like, yeah, let's do this. So they brought him on and I'm like, yeah, my man's here. So it's all good. That's what I do, man. It's just like, I bring my boys up, especially those I know who are proper and know what they're doing. That's what I do.
That's a big thing, right? Like a lot of people have their stories about how they broke in, but the trump card is definitely having a hookup, having a connection, having a contact of someone that you've worked with that can vouch for you to be like, yo, this person can handle the job and bring something to the table.
Bring value to the table, yep.
They're not coming in hands out.
And, we talked about this earlier, right? It's an incestuous industry. Everybody knows everybody, right?
You always want to work with the homie.
For real. And you don't want to develop that reputation. Like, no, he's an asshole. He's difficult to work with because that shit fucking follows you and everybody knows it.
Yo, bro, you think that COVID-19 is rough?
Oh man, right? That bad word of mouth, 2003. Shit.
Yo, ain't no mask gonna protect you from that.
No,
bro.
man,
Hell
right? No vaccine's gonna shield you from that shit.
Ain't no cure for that sickness.
So, Rockstar Agent, we went through so many damn iterations on that. It just wasn't working. And then finally they kind of put it on the shelf for a little bit. And then I ended up being put on to, so you're talking about table tennis. So at the time, there were 3 projects that were brought up, right? One was table tennis. Another one was a motocross, if I remember correctly. And that's what my boy AJ that I was mentioning before, that's what he was on. And then I was put on to, I think it was sort of like a battle car arena, twisted metal type of thing.
Yeah, I can see that in the DNA of like Smuggler's Run and Midnight Club. That's a natural progression of that technology and that pedigree.
Exactly. And then out of those 3, the other 2 kind of fell by the wayside. Somehow, table tennis survived.
That would have been
That was the one that I would have if you would took a bet in Vegas.
Yeah, I'm a betting man, bro.
Right?
I would have lost all my fucking money.
I would have been right there next to you. Like, dog, I lost my money.
You would have lost your shirt. Oh, that's on the strength of Ben, bro. I mean, tell me different, and I believe you. But from the story he told me, that's on the strength of Ben to really kind of carry the load
for
to
real.
Be like, yo, these are the answers to all the questions. You got anything else?
No, I have to say, right, because I was, I think, one of 2 designers on, so I was on the battle arena, the car.
Twisted metal kind of.
Twisted metal type of thing, right? Smuggler's Run one. I just wasn't feeling it. I just wasn't into it.
You yourself.
I wasn't into it, right? I was just kind of like, I think at the time it was kind of like, what the hell are we doing, right? Why 3 projects? They're just kind of throwing us onto it. We don't really know what we're doing type of thing. I think they were just trying to bide their time.
It's fucking rare, the studio that can sustain 2 projects at a time, let alone 3.
Right. It was just like, I just don't know what we're doing here. And of course I put into work and I tried to do what I could, but in the back of my mind, it just wasn't going to happen. And you can get a sense of like when shit's going to happen or it's not. And a lot of that really depends on, well, do people behind it actually believe it?
Yeah. Do you believe in it? Do you have buy-in from the team?
And to Ben's credit, he stuck with it, and I think just through sheer willpower and just force of personality with him and other key people, on that project, they were able to make that thing happen. So fuck yeah, man. To this day, I'm just like, I don't fucking believe it. It's like table tennis. You fucking kidding me?
That game
but it's
stands
fucking
out.
Good.
It's tight. The word I use is tight.
Yes.
Right? Like table tennis as a sport, as a next generation title of Gen 3, PS3, it was just an intelligent approach of like, yo, it's basically a fighting game. You got 2 people that need to look really good.
Yeah.
And then everything else is filling and dresser.
Yep.
And make that shit tight, make that shit feel like table tennis. And boom, it proved out the tech.
Yep.
It was, I want to say, well scoped. You can't what do they call it? Feature creep table tennis.
Well, I mean, maybe you can if you want to start going like the Street Fighter route, which I think maybe they might have considered. And it's just like, hey, fireballs and all that shit. But yeah.
That's interesting, man. But hey, all the decisions, it's hard to look back on it and be like, yo, I think all the right decisions were made. It got it out there because it stands out in the portfolio. It's like, yo, this is not a Rockstar game. There has to be more behind it.
That's the outlier, right? When you look at Rockstar games, you're just like, this, that, Bully, GTA, table tennis. What the fuck is that? But yeah, so, continued on with that. And then just obviously, those 2 other projects fell by the wayside. Everybody then got moved on to another version of Agent that still wasn't quite working. And then at that point in time, I'm just like, yo, I just don't see this happening. So then, I started talking with the folks over at Midnight Club. At the time they were doing Dub Edition. And I'm like, yo, you guys needed a designer? And they actually needed designers.
I love Midnight Club, bro.
It's so good.
Midnight Club.
So good.
So good, man. In the spirit of like racing, arcadey, design your car. And I never lived in California before then. And I could tell you how to navigate L.A. because of that game.
I got a funny story about Midnight Club L.A. So because, you can navigate, we literally went down to L.A., right? So we went to like downtown, we went to the beach, over to Santa Monica, went out to East L.A., went over to Long Beach. Guess who they sent over to South Central?
You.
Yep. So they sent me, so no bullshit, right? So what ended up happening is that we had planned this, right? We're going to do an R&D trip. We're going to go down there, take reference shots and all this other shit, right? So we rented cars and there were 2 teams. We were going to split up. Some were going to go over to Santa Monica. Some were going to go downtown. Somebody's going to go to Long Beach. Somebody's going to go to South Central.
So when you say you're doing research for a racing game, and you say you're renting cars, are you renting like sports cars? Or are you renting like Escalade black vans kind of shit?
Not even that. We were planning all this shit, and we had all the locations scouted out. We know where we're going to go, what we're going to take photos of, right? And so we divided up into 2 teams. So it was me, and I had 2 artists with me. One was this pasty white boy. Good cat, really good cat. I'm not saying nothing about nothing, but just pasty white boy, glasses.
He stands out.
Stands out like hell, right?
Like powder.
Like, yeah, literally, right? Like the movie Powder. Come on, dog. The other dude, right, was this Korean dude. Cool cat, but just obviously has an accent and, hey, looks more Asian than I do, right? On a good day, maybe I look Mexican, but whatever.
It's the Philippine in you, bro.
Right.
I always look at Philippines as like Spanish Asians, right? Like that's how I look at them. Yeah,
right. I forgot what comedian it was, but they were like basically saying like, yeah, like we're the Asian Hispanics of Asia.
Yeah. I love my Filipinos, man. I grew up with so many of them in NYC.
Filipino. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I was teamed up with those 2 individuals. So they assigned us on day 1 downtown. Right. And we had to go to downtown. We went to Civic Center, went down to parts of Skid Row. So, it's pretty fucking sketchy.
Got to check out Skid Row. Yeah.
But we got to do all that. Right.
That's that Rockstar research, man.
For real.
Nobody does it like them.
So imagine that. Right. We're all decked out in cameras. We're all walking around taking photos and shit. Day 2, they send us down to South Central. So we went down to South Central, we went to Compton, we went to Watts, we went to all these places, right? The funny thing is before, because I already knew what we were assigned. I knew that we had downtown day 1, we had South Central day 2. I told whoever was booking all this stuff, right? Yo, whatever you get us, don't get us a blue or a red car.
Ooh, yeah. Don't get them gang colors.
Don't get me none of that, right? Just get me something black or white. Green, I don't give a fuck, right?
Neutral.
But they thought I was fucking kicking it around, right? You know what they gave me?
No, Jefe, no.
So they gave me a red car. Not only did they give me a red car, but you have to remember at this point in time, I want to say this, what was this? 2006. 6? Yeah, that sounds about right. 2005, around there. They put me in a red PT Cruiser.
Oh man,
dog!
I know. My hip hop dudes love that PT Cruiser.
You put me in something that's just fucking bright ass red.
It stands out,
and a car that just stands out, right?
Yes.
Just like a PT Cruiser. You kidding me? With a pasty white boy and a Korean dude.
Yo, all right. Let's all take a step back and just appreciate for the surface level of that image. Not trying to make any social commentary, any political commentary. Just the sheer visual of that car.
Right.
That doesn't look like any other car.
A PT Cruiser
in blood colors.
Moving around Watts.
With a very diverse set of riders.
Clearly do not belong there. So it gets deeper. When we were in downtown day 1, I was walking, taking photos, wasn't paying attention. And I kind of slipped off of a sidewalk off the ledge and I kind of twisted my knee.
Fuck.
Right. And it was, a little bit later in the day, thankfully. So I wasn't necessarily struggling, but I could tell like I really kind of, jacked it. I kind of hit it at the right spot. So overnight it got a little bit sore. It kind of puffed up a little bit and I was limping. Right. So the following day, very noticeable limp. Well, we got to go to South Central.
You got the swagger.
Yeah, I had the gangster lean, but I'm not trying to do no lean for real.
So, I'm laughing, bro, but I'm really nervously anxious for you, man.
We're driving around Watts, and we go to the Watts Tower, and I'm just like, yo, what are we doing over here? Because we got to take photos. I'm like, all right. So I get out of the car, and I'm limping hard, and I got like this $2,000 camera or whatever and shit. And I'm just like, yo, somebody's going to jack me, right? Look at this fool walking around limping.
Because it don't matter. It's daylight.
And it was the middle of the day, and I'm just like, these fools coming out this red PT Cruiser, man, we're gonna just go and just gank these fellas, right? So the funny thing is that we had just left Watts Tower. We're heading over to Compton. If you're aware of the geography, Watts is a little bit further north. You start kind of building south. We knew that we were going to hit Compton last because that's further south. And once we're done with Compton, then we just hit the 405 and then head back home. That was our last day. Mm-hmm. So we were working because we stayed in downtown at the time. So we were just going to hit South Central from the north and build our way south, take all the photos that we can, and then just get the fuck out. So we finished up Watts and we're heading down towards Compton, and we were driving, and all of a sudden we saw these two cars parked on the side, and they saw us. I mean, how are you not going to see red PT Cruiser up in Watts, right?
Yes.
They saw us, and then they looked at us, and they started waving at us, right?
Like signaling to come through, come over here?
Like, come on down, right? And so my man in the back, Mr. South Korea, goes to me, and he's like, hey, them guys back there were waving at us, right? And he goes, what do they want? And then I'm like, they know we're lost. They probably think we're here for drugs. And then he goes, really? And I go, yeah. He goes, do you think we should go back there? And I'm like, no, fuck you. We ain't going back there. Luckily, nothing happened, but it was just one of those weird freaking things.
If you had a blue car, you would have been fine.
I don't know. I'm not saying that I know, the geography of, Crips versus Bloods, throughout the various, boroughs or various areas of South Central, but you never know. So I'm like, why even why even mess with that?
Don't chance it. Yeah, because you could always be tested as well. Like, hey, why are you representing us?
Right. Right. In a PT Cruiser.
Because it's funny. I haven't seen a PT Cruiser in I don't know how long, but I can describe it to you instantly, man. Like the way it has kind of those front tires are like on a spoke detached from the car body. Yeah, it's very iconic.
It looks like a slice of an apple pie, that was like a little bit of a snub nose because it's kind of like wide. It's narrower in the front and kind of wider in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has this like old school gangster mobster vibe.
You're talking about old gangster mobster, like, Chicago circa 1930s.
That's what I'm referring to.
Right.
That old vintage style of automobile design.
But that was the hotness back then. That was like the thing back then.
It was a mash of like old school with new school. And then of course, I can only envision it with spinner rims, right? Like 20-inch chromed out wheels, all those hip hop videos at the time, right? Like Cash Money, all those guys, Lil Wayne, yeah.
That was Midnight Club, and then
how the fuck did you? So you made it back home?
Clearly, I did, right? But it was
thanks to you for not for steering those brave souls in the car to be like, don't listen to anybody waving you to come over.
Don't. If they wave you down, they probably think clearly you don't belong, and you're probably there buying drugs.
Yo, that whole time you're telling me that story, like I clearly see you in front of me, so I know you're good. But the whole time I'm still like on edge of a thriller novel.
Dog. I was always watching those other two because I kind of felt like, hey, I can maybe navigate myself. But like the white dude, I don't know, clearly he's not supposed to be there. And then the Asian guy, maybe, they think like the funny thing was because he was the artist, well, they're both artists. He was like going around taking photos of everybody's houses because, need to get reference shots. And I'm like, you might want to just kind of be careful with that because they probably think like, you're Korean or Asian. You're probably there maybe wanting to buy their property, some other shit. And they might not be cool to that.
I would have thought it would have been like, undercover DTs taking pictures and shit. Yeah. Did that lead to good reference though? Like obviously it did because that game is as true to the source material.
You tell me.
I know Sunset Boulevard so good without ever having stepped foot on there, man.
Yeah, we did it as proper as we could, at least get the vibe, and the general kind of geography.
And it felt good, bro. I think that was the first game. I remember, I'll tell you this, and you tell me if you had any vision or input onto design. But I remember, and I'm describing to you as viscerally as possible, that I can hold down handbrake and crank the acceleration, and fucking donut and then shoot off and get the acceleration on that, man. And that felt so good. Even the camera on that,
the camera work was
unlike
good.
any other racing game I had touched. And mind you, I put Need for Speed Underground kind of at the top of the list, but Midnight Club 3 reigns supreme to me, bro.
Yeah, it was good. We did some good stuff on that, so I was very happy with that project.
I can't fault Rockstar for doubling down on GTA and Red Dead.
Yeah, but I wish they would have came back to it. That was the one thing I never understood, why they never went back to it.
I would love to see another Midnight Club iteration. I get if I'm, money guy and I'm like, why don't I put all my resources onto these two moneymakers? But there's something to be said for like, hey, smaller budget, tightly scoped game, and the return, the ROI,
right,
is gonna be worth it. Like, you can't tell me no,
brother. I'm gonna blow your mind right now. Right?
All right, what you got for me, man?
After we released that, right? What the next two cities that we were gonna do. You have an idea. We already started doing R&D for it. We traveled to one of the two cities to get reference shots. And obviously, we're going to be building on Midnight Club 3, right? We have the tech already in place. And so we learned so much.
Ooh, Miami.
Nope.
Vegas?
Boom.
Ooh. Yo, because they do what they do, that gumball joint, right? They do like the Death Valley gumball racing. Okay, so to be fair, I got all hyped up with Miami just because I'm thinking Vice City and GTA. But when I think about racing streets, I want that smooth, flat road. Yeah.
Because we had all the casinos, we had all the themes and all that stuff that we were thinking about playing into. And we had learned so much. Like, it's interesting you mentioned Sunset. So Sunset was the first district that we had designed in Midnight Club 3. And then from that, we learned so much. And then that's why if you notice, if you ever get a chance, go back and play Midnight Club 3. Sunset plays very tight, right? It's very precise. You have to be very precision based on that. You start going into some of the other areas. You go into the beach, you go into downtown, you go into South Central, especially in South Central. It opens up a lot more. We learned so much more because Sunset was the very first area that we had designed out. And from that, we learned all the lessons. And so by the time we got to South Central, which was our DLC, right, that was like, that was the pinnacle for us. We had learned so much by that bump. Yep.
As a designer, I'm going to go back into it with my design lens and check it out because you're right. That tends to happen a lot when we make games, right? It's like that first section, we're kind of figuring things out. We're experimenting. We kind of go with one approach and we lock it down. And then we got to be like, oh, shit, we still got like 80% of the game to put together, right?
And you start applying what you learned from that first 20. Yep. So that's what it was. And so we started moving from that. It's like, okay, hey, we've learned so much. We're going to do Vegas, and we were going to do a European city. Any guesses?
I definitely would love to hug along the coast is what I'm thinking, right? Like southern France, southern Spain, maybe even some Greece in there and Athens.
Okay. Dog, we were going to do London. Roundabouts, you got all that stuff. You got the River Thames, you got Big Ben, you got all that stuff.
So many good landmarks.
We were doing so much research on that city, man.
And you do the driving on the left.
Exactly. Man, we had all that stuff planned out. The double-decker buses, we had all that ready to go.
Those are so iconic.
Yes. We were doing research on landmarks, Big Ben, Parliament, all that stuff.
Damn, man. So you guys had a roadmap to keep the franchise going strong.
Yep. And then just for whatever reason, they just pivoted, and then it became Red Dead. And then that's yeah. I mean, and at the end of the day, it's like, hey, good call, right? But I think there's money left on the table that they can still go back to for Midnight Club.
Absolutely, man. Take a little skeleton crew, start paving the way. Because I'm sure there's still Midnight Club blood at the studio.
I still get some things about that every now and again. So for sure.
Can we toast to the Midnight Club franchise?
Sure. Let me get a refill here.
I love that, hearing that cork.
You love that? Salud.
You think it'll come back out there?
I hope so, but it's been what, almost 14 years, you know, so I don't know.
We don't know, but maybe the next generation listening to this, maybe it'll wind up in your hands.
Maybe, if you're, future Take-Two, Rockstar, head, and you've got some position of influence, I think there's something there.
Damn, Jefe, there's still so much to cover in what you've done, your career, and life on Red Dead, and before then. But let's cut it off here, and let's leave this for a part 2.
We got to leave the audience wanting, right? So let's give them a little bit of taste of what's coming up. So obviously, we still got, some 3DO stuff. Got some Fox Interactive. I don't know if you know about that.
Yo, when you talk about Fox Interactive, I'm thinking like Aliens, and I'm thinking like Simpsons. I'm thinking like Sega CD type shit.
Okay, yeah. You're not too far off. Got that. Got a little bit of EA that I was at for a bit.
What? You EA blood? You EA kinfolk?
But for a minute, I was an EA head. Yes.
I wish they had like an EA directory where I could look up people that used to work there and like get all their credits.
And then, of course, Sega.
I don't know anybody that's put cartridges together. Because here's the thing. All the OGs I know are like PC heads. Right, so they can't even claim that they put cartridges together or have work on a cartridge. So you are a special breed, and I'm looking so forward to diving in on that. Let's wrap this episode up. I want to end off and ask you, is there anybody that you want to see fall out of play area behind you?
So I'm going to do 3DO. Actually, it's my boy lives up in Seattle right now, right? So he's local to you.
I can like go have like a socially distanced coffee with him.
You can, for real. Good cat. We met at 3DO.
You vouch?
I vouch, man.
You'll make the introductions for me?
I will make introductions. My man named Sylvan Dubrovsky.
What does he do?
He's a designer.
Okay. Where does he work?
It's been a minute.
Okay.
I want to say that he was at PopCap a minute ago.
Shit. So he's EA blood, potentially. He might be EA blood.
I have to catch up. It's been a minute since I chatted with him, but my boy is good. He's good. We bonded over pro wrestling because that was kind of like our thing.
Oh, Jefe. Yo, thank you so much, bro.
Of course.
I had a
anytime.
blast.
It's just not enough time, so let's make sure to do this second part.
You have any last words for the Out of Play area peeps?
I'm so happy, we reconnected. It's been a while since we talked. Like you mentioned, last time we talked was at Celis's wedding. So it's been a hot minute. So I'm glad.
I think that was 2017?
Oh, yeah. What? 3 years? Is it 4 years? Wow. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. So no, I'm glad that you hit me up. I'm glad Ben, name dropped me and stuff. So, hey, I'm happy that you're doing good, brother. I knew, as sappy as it sounds, when we crossed paths at Rockstar, I'm like, no, this guy knows what he's talking about.
I had awesome role models that, as I'm in my second spot in the industry, trying to earn respect from all you OGs, that you can be yourself and blow off steam in the middle of the dev floor, shouting at the top of your lungs. That I could willingly take part in that, and nobody would tell me anything because they'd be like, yo, we're working these guys. We're going to let them blow off steam.
And I appreciate the words, and I really do, and I'm glad that at least like on some levels that there was an effect. But I have to admit, at that point in time, I was not in a good place. I could have been a better role model and at least a better influence and at least, give better examples. I'm much better and in a much better place.
Hey, you learn.
Yeah.
I could have been a better mentee. I've learned myself as well. And I think this is what this podcast gives me, is an outlet to reconnect with you guys as a more experienced, knowledgeable person that knows myself better, that has a chance now to ask you the questions I didn't get to ask you when I worked alongside you. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm getting to do that for the benefit of myself and other people behind me that
for sure
aren't so eloquent or don't even know the right questions to ask. Jefe, that's all it is.
It's all good. All
right, brother. We'll end right here. We'll say, to be continued.
Woo! I don't know if you could tell it, but that Shibui whiskey hit me hard. I felt very loose and caught a little bit of slur in my tongue there in that episode. Jefe's got stories for days. I'm going to continue to beat that drum of empowering your leads and people managers with training and resources to
get better at their job, and take care of their reports. Give them a budget for team building and being able to nominate and send their reports to go level up at events, talks, conferences, or more. The most senior, most knowledgeable person does not always want to be a people manager, and therefore it doesn't make sense that they'll be the best lead. Give your talent paths to pick from for their taste to either become a specialist, a principal or something like that, or be a lead and a director. But let them have the option. Set your team up to succeed, not flounder. Were you surprised about any of the mobile game dev practices Jeff talked about? Lately, I'm seeing the lines between mobile and console development blur significantly, especially as that free-to-play model keeps growing and comes to all platforms. Jeff's been a major influence on me, as someone whom let me know it was okay to be yourself and not lose your unique voice at a company just to try to imitate or keep up with the people in power. He gives me hope that we as game devs can find that balance and sustain to figure out how to juggle work and life and eventually make it to retirement age without having to even think about leaving this industry that we love and has given so much, as well as we want to give so much to it. I'd love to hear from you, the listeners, what you thought and when I should invite him back for the continuation and for that part 2. What questions would you like me to ask? Because I have a lot I'd like to know about his time at EA, 3DO, and especially what it's like working at Sega. On the next episode of Out of Play Area, debuting on Monday, May 10th, we'll chop it up with Kirsten Quinn, an audio director at Polyarch in Seattle, the developers of Moss, and we'll talk about her extensive background as an audio designer across various studios including Microsoft, Riot, and Monolith, where she's worked on such games as Fable 2 and 3, Legends of Runeterra, Sunset Overdrive, Condemned 2 and 3, and one of my personal faves, Fear. One of the topics we'll also touch on is building more equitable hiring practices and not crunching your candidates before they've even started the job. If you're curious about audio design, you won't want to miss it. Plus, she has a really cool voice you've got to hear. Thank you for listening. If you found it enlightening and enjoyed the show, I'd appreciate your support in following the podcast, leaving a review, or best of all, just spreading the word and telling a fellow developer about the show. Every little bit helps get this out there and raise awareness. If you have any thoughts, comments, questions for me or a guest, you can email me at john@outofplayarea.com or call in and leave a message at 760-981-0311. Both links are readily available at the top of our homepage at outofplayarea.com. If you're a game developer who's willing to share their story or knowledge, click on the Calendly button on our site and let's link up. Please make sure to get approval from your studio, PR, or HR team beforehand. Out of Play Area releases new episodes every other Monday on all the major players, including Apple, Google, and Spotify. Please make sure to follow and subscribe so that you see what developer pushes Out of Play Area next time. I'm your host, John Diaz. Till next time, devs, stay strong, stay true, stay dangerous. We out!